Hello, you beautiful people. I hope you're doing well. I was up late last night. I'm exhausted. The streaming thing's a lot of work, believe it or not. I was watching the news this morning and I found out about HR Bill 867. And if you're not familiar with that, you will be very soon. But it sent me down a rabbit hole on Marco Rubio, of all people. If you're not familiar with him, well, you will be. Yeah, he is not a friend of MAGA. In fact, MAGA was dumbfounded and outraged when Trump appointed him to the executive branch. In fact, he is now fourth in line for the presidency. And it just makes me wonder why. How did he go from being an enemy of Trump to now being fourth in line for the presidency? I mean, that to me is just a red flag. So I kind of jumped into both the bill and then, getting into the background of Marco Rubio. So let's see here. The House of Representatives were scheduled this week to vote on Representative Mike Lawler's proposed H.R. 867. This is going to blow your mind. A bill that would criminalize private IGO-led boycotts of Israel and includes fines up to $1 million and up to 20 years in jail. These are American citizens that would be thrown in jail for boycotting Israel. What's going on, you guys? I'm telling you, Netanyahu. If you didn't see my video that I did on him, go check it out. This guy's unbelievable. The state of Israel it's becoming a serious issue. Now we have Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I'll tell you, this lady, she is on the right side of everything, isn't she? She's remarkable. Well, she wrote, I will be voting no. It is my job to defend Americans' rights to boycott or buy whomever they choose without the government harshly fining them or imprisoning them. You know who else was against it? Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk threatens Republicans voting for GOP bill H.R. 867. We will be watching very closely. And that was from an article, 2 paragraphs back in May 5th. I feel like I've been under a rock. Can't believe I didn't know about this. Turning Point founder and influential MAGA adherent Charlie Kirk, who tracks and publicizes the priorities of lawmakers, he seems out of step with the movement, is also against the bill. Kirk wrote on X that bills like this only create more anti-Semitism and play into growing narratives that Israel is running the United States government. In America, you are allowed to hold differing views. You are allowed to disagree and protest. We've allowed far too many people who hate America to move here from abroad. But the right to speak freely is the birthright of all Americans. This bill should not pass. Kirk added the threat, any Republican that votes for this bill will expose themselves. We will be watching very closely. And then on X, he tweeted, tomorrow the House will vote on H.R. 867, a bill that will criminalize private boycotts of Israel, fines up to $1 million, and prison time up to 20 years. And he's right. I mean, bills like this and actions by the state of Israel and Netanyahu only creates more hate towards the Jews. And it's very, very sad because we don't hate the Jews. We love the Jews. We are just not fans of the Israeli government and all of those who are oppressing people around the world and committing genocide as well. But we love Jews. On Sunday evening, fellow Republican Congressman Thomas Massie, Republican of West Virginia, who also said he would vote against the bill, reported on X, apparently H.R. 867 has been pulled from the schedule for this week. Thank you for your vocal opposition on this platform. It was a ridiculous bill that our leadership should have never scheduled for a vote. Massie added a warning about a version of the bill resurfacing in the future. He wrote, they buried the original smaller version of this bill inside the 2018 NDAA. Look for them to do something similar in the near future for this legislation to expand the 2018 version. Interesting. Now, I started doing a little bit of more research into Israel, and looks like they just bombed. Here, I'll show you. The IDF announced the launch of the next stage of Operation Gideon Chariots, saying 2 divisions had begun pushing into the heart of Gaza City, with 2 regular divisions operating in the surrounding area. It said a 3rd division would join the operation in the coming days. They will surround Gaza City on all sides, the IDF said. After weeks of threatening an expansion of the Israeli military operation in Gaza City, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz also signaled on Tuesday that it had begun. And now we have a photograph of the devastation in Gaza. The caption reads, "A woman reacts as Palestinians inspect the site of an overnight Israeli strike on a house in Gaza City." And this was reported on September 16th of 2025. And I just want you to take a look at this and what's happening over there. Now, I don't know if you watched my other video where I talk about how Egypt is unaligning itself with Israel after the recent attacks. And I don't know if I told you this or not, but apparently Egyptian intelligence had warned Israel of the October 7th attack beforehand. But they're claiming Israel chose not to do anything about that. And we've seen that here in the United States, where our intelligence agency knew about certain attacks, and they just allowed them to happen. So this article from CBS News says Egypt, however, escalated its language against Israel, with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi describing the country as an enemy in a fiery speech on Monday in Qatar during the Arab Leaders Summit. It was the first time an Egyptian leader had used the term since the 2 countries established diplomatic ties in 1979, says Rashwan, head of Egypt's State Information Service. Egypt is being threatened, Rashwan told the state-run Extra News television late Monday. El-Sisi's comment played prominently across Egyptian newspapers' front pages on Tuesday through Cairo. Though Cairo has taken no steps to change its formal diplomatic status with Israel, Rubio spent an hour meeting with Qatar's leader before heading back to the airport. And this is what put me on my Mark Rubio deep dive. So he met with Qatar, where he was next scheduled to fly to the United Kingdom, where President Trump is set to arrive for an official visit on Tuesday evening. And you would think that while in the UK, Trump would meet with Tony Robinson, since he's kind of doing over in UK what Trump vowed to do here in America. We'll see if that meeting took place. Anyway, we have a very short window in time in which a deal can happen to end the war in Gaza, Rubio warned before arriving in Doha. It's a key moment, an important moment. Rubio said a negotiated settlement still remained the best option, while acknowledging the dangers an intensified military campaign posed to Gaza. Okay. The only thing worse than a war is a protracted one that goes on forever and ever, Rubio said. At some point, this has to end. At some point, Hamas has to be defanged. And we hope it can happen through a negotiation. But I think time, unfortunately, is running out. So there you go. Now we know Rubio's position on the war in Palestine and the Israeli genocide. He is pro-Israeli genocide. And that is exactly why I went into my deep dive. Experts commissioned by UN accuse Israel of genocide in Gaza. Separately, a team of independent experts commissioned by the United Nations Human Rights Council concluded that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. It issued a report Tuesday that calls on the international community to end the genocide and take steps to punish those responsible for it. And that, I guess, is why they want to pass this H.R. 867. to stop us from taking steps to stop the genocide. Israel has refused to cooperate with the Commission and has accused it and the HRC of anti-Israel bias. Of course, they're anti-Semitic, of course. A statement from Israel's foreign ministry Tuesday said it categorically rejects this distorted and false report. And then it goes on to say that Rubio met with Netanyahu in Israel as U.S. ally Qatar gathers Arab neighbors. So, I found that to be really, really interesting. So I wanted to know everything I could about Marco Rubio, but I also wanted to know more about these IGOs. So I went into Wikipedia, and I found that there was a complete listing. It says, see the Yearbook of International Organizations, which includes 25,000 international non-government organizations, excluding for-profit enterprises, about 5,000 IGOs, and lists dormant and dead organizations as well as those in operation. So when I clicked on the link, this is what I got. When I wanted to know more about the IGOs, I'm sorry, no longer exists. So I had to dig a little deeper. And I got a little bit more information from the UAI, Yearbook of International Organizations. It provides the authoritative overview of international organizations, past and present. It is continuously updated, it says. So for over 100 years, the UIA has been a leading provider of reliable information on global civil society. The Yearbook of International Organizations is published both online and in print. And it says here, when you go into the different IGOs, and NGOs, there are 78,583 IGOs and NGOs since inception. It says many are defunct, but oh my goodness. And we learned about NGOs during the beginning of Trump's administration and how much waste and fraud is involved in these organizations. Now, one IGO is the America-Israeli Cultural Foundation, raises funds in the United States to support the cultural life of Israel. So we're supporting their cultural life. And then here in America, we're experiencing cultural genocide. So why are we giving them money? Well, we need it here. I just don't even understand this world. Another one, Christian Friends of Israel, but I couldn't tell if that was an American one or not. Again, we have the World Philatelic Congress of Israel, Holy Land, and Judaica Societies, and that was founded in 1968 in Washington, D.C. In recent decades, pro-Israel NGOs have emerged as influential players in international policy, humanitarian aid, and public discourse. These organizations, which often identify as nonprofit advocacy or humanitarian entities, actively support the political, diplomatic, or cultural interests of the State of Israel. While some work on development or educational initiatives, others are more prominently engaged in lobbying efforts, media outreach, and shaping foreign policy in Israel's favor. Well, alrighty then. I think we're really starting to find out a lot about the relationship that America has with Israel. What makes an NGO pro-Israel? The term pro-Israel NGO refers to a non-governmental organization that either explicitly or implicitly supports the political, diplomatic, or ideological interests of the State of Israel. And let me tell you, friends, there are many. Affiliations with Israeli ministries, military initiatives, or think tanks also serve as indicators. Organizations may partner with or receive recognition from Israeli state institutions or prominent pro-Israel lobbying groups abroad, such as AIPAC. Now, we've heard a lot about that lately, haven't we? NGO Monitor or similar bodies. AIPAC, if I'm not mistaken, that's the organization that wines and dines our congressmen. In fact, I remember Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that she's just about the only one that they've never invited. I guess they know that they can't buy her off. And I guess Israel and others were starting to realize that they couldn't buy off Charlie Kirk either. Pro-Israel NGOs exhibit a global reach that reflects the international nature of their advocacy missions. Their presence is especially concentrated in North America, in Europe, where policy influence and public diplomacy efforts are strategically targeted. In the United States, many pro-Israel NGOs are deeply embedded in lobbying networks, think tanks, and educational outreach initiatives. They play significant roles in shaping legislative discourse, foreign policy orientation, and media narratives surrounding Middle East politics. Well, we know all about that, don't we? How states define lobbying and lobbyists. Now, you would think that that would be universal, but it's not. Each state has their own definition. Lobbying generally refers to seeking to influence government action through written or oral communication. What actions constitute lobbying vary. Now, I looked up in some of the like my home state and some of the other states in America, and the definition here does vary, but essentially lobbying generally refers to seeking to influence government action through written or oral, and you're essentially being paid. So in Pennsylvania, a lobbyist is any individual, association, corporation, partnership, business, trust, or other entity that engages in lobbying on behalf of a principal for economic consideration. The term includes an attorney at law while engaged in lobbying. California, any individual who receives $2,000 or more in economic consideration, blah, blah, blah. So a lobbyist means a person who is employed and receives payment or who contracts for economic consideration. So then I was looking into each state in regards to this HR 867, and I discovered that Wisconsin and some other Midwest states. Well, here, let me just read this. Midwest activists challenge anti-boycott laws in fight for free speech. 38 states have passed laws or executive orders penalizing boycotts of Israel. 38! And organizers are pushing back. This is unbelievable to me. This blows my mind. And of course, like, the Midwest is having a problem with them, and that's where the Jewish Mafia started. Anti-boycott legislation tracker. Now, you can go to this website, and I'll put the link in the comments, but it's justvision.org, and it from Palestinian rights to environmental sustainability to gun safety and beyond. So this, you can find out about the anti-boycott of Israel legislation and see if it's in your state. And if it is, of course, I would suggest that you contact your state government. In Pennsylvania, it's Bill HB 2107. It passed in November of 2016. I have been under a rock. I really have. It prohibits the state from contracting with companies, organizations, and other entities for supplies, services, or construction unless the company certifies that it is not engaged in a boycott of a person or entity based in or doing business with a jurisdiction with which the state enjoys open trade. Israel is the only jurisdiction explicitly mentioned in the preamble of the bill. We should all have dual citizenship. I mean, if Israel's going to be the state of Israel, it might as well be the 51st state of America at this point. So I'm wondering, like, with all the genocide and everything that's going on in Israel, what are the Jews? What are the Israelis? What do they think about it? Are they protesting? So I did a little bit of research. I came across an article from the Jewish Chronicle dated March 23rd, 2025. It says more than 100,000 Israelis take to the streets in nationwide protest over the Gaza war. Opposition leaders accuse the government of launching a direct, violent, and unrestrained attack on us, our democracy, our values, our future. And then again, just recently on September 6th, massive crowd protests in Jerusalem amid warnings Gaza City op will endanger hostages. So again, tens of thousands went to protest Netanyahu in Israel. So yeah, they are protesting their government. I also came across a really sweet article about Venice Film Festival awards second place to a documentary about a 5-year-old Palestinian girl who allegedly was killed by Israeli troops in Gaza last year. The name of the documentary is The Voice of Hind Rajab. The film, which uses the real audio of the young girl's desperate pleas for help as her car comes under fire, was given a record 24-minute standing ovation at its premiere. And I thought I had a picture of the sweet little girl. She's precious. Let me see if I can find it. Here you go. It's adorable. Look at her. This sweet little baby. And there are so many children over there who have lost their lives and are suffering as we speak. Isn't she precious? It just breaks my heart. Breaks the world's heart. And again, there was another protest here back in August. Israelis protest to end Gaza war as anger over fate of captives boils over. And the police use water cannons to disperse demonstrators, blocking a road in Jerusalem during a protest. It's just falling on deaf ears, though, sadly. Looks like they had a day of disruption, is what they called it. So, we have Marco Rubio. He's an American politician and lawyer serving as the senior United States Senator in Florida, a seat he held since 2011 before being appointed to Trump's cabinet. A Cuban American, passionate about the American dream. Member of the Republican Party. Also, not only is he Secretary of State, but he also serves as acting National Security Advisor. What a busy, busy man. Now, being the National Security Advisor, I wonder if he knew anything about the Charlie Kirk assassination beforehand. The first to hold the position of Secretary of State, when it was actually called the Secretary of Foreign Affairs, was Thomas Jefferson, by the way. And yes, he is fourth in line for the presidency. Secretary of State serves as the principal advisor to the President of the United States on all foreign affairs matters. The Secretary carries out the President's foreign policies through the U.S. Department of State, which includes the Foreign Service, Civil Service, and U.S. Agency for International Development. The office holder is the second highest ranking member of the President's cabinet after the Vice President and ranks fourth in the presidential line of succession, first among cabinet secretaries. So that's an extremely high-ranking position, and I just don't understand why he has it. And I'm digging here, and I'm trying to get to the bottom of it, but it's just not making any sense. Now, the National Security Advisor serves as the principal advisor to the President of the United States on all national security issues. Okay? That's important. Now, how you can do both jobs is beyond me. The National Security Advisor participates in meetings of the National Security Council and usually chairs meetings of the Principals Committee of the NSC, National Security Council, with the Secretary of State. So he's going to be having meetings with himself. That's interesting. And the Secretary of Defense. The NSA also sits on the Homeland Security Council. The National Security Advisor is supported by NSC staff who produce classified research and briefings for the National Security Advisor to review and present either to the NSC or the President. Well, you know what? Maybe he's just got too much on his plate, and that's why the assassination slipped through the cracks. The National Security Advisor is appointed by the President and does not require confirmation by the U.S. Senate. I probably should. It's been his role since May of 2025. Now, I just want to bring up the previous Secretary of State under the Obama administration was Hillary Clinton. Remember Benghazi. Can't talk about Secretary of State without bringing up Benghazi. Rubio is a Cuban American from Miami, Florida. Attended law school at the University of Miami. Served as city commissioner for West Miami in the 90s. He was elected in 2000 to represent the 111th district in the Florida House of Representatives. As the majority leader, he was subsequently elected Speaker of the Florida House. He served for 2 years, beginning in November 2006. Left the Florida legislature in 2008 due to term limits, began teaching. In a three-way race, Rubio was elected to the U.S. Senate in 2010. 2015, he launched a presidential bid, and I think we all watched those debates back in 2016, and they were incredibly entertaining. Due to his influence on U.S. policy on Latin America during the first Trump administration, he was described as a virtual Secretary of State for Latin America. Wow, that's so nice for Latin America. He is also considered to have been one of Congress's most hawkish members with regard to China and the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese government sanctioned him twice. I mean, I can't say anything bad about that. I mean, CCP. Enough said. In 2024, President-elect Trump announced his intention to nominate Rubio to be Secretary of State in his second administration. And nobody knows why. Rubio is also the acting archivist of the United States. My goodness, isn't he a busy man? Busy. He and Netanyahu have that in common. He was the last acting USAID administrator as well. Well, isn't that interesting? USAID administrators, not USAID, don't be mistaken. It's USAID. Now, he was the administrator before the agency was abolished. I bet he wasn't happy about that. He's the first Latino to serve as Secretary of State or act as National Security Advisor, making him the highest-ranking Hispanic American official in U.S. history. Good for him. What else can we find out here? Administrator of the United States Agency for International Development. Now, United States Agency for International Development it says formation was in 1961. And, oh, wait a second. Let's go back. This is interesting. Let's get into Rubio's family, where he came from, his ancestry, his family history. His parents were Cubans who immigrated to the United States in 1956 during the regime of Batista, 2.5 years before Fidel Castro ascended to power after the Cuban Revolution. His mother made at least 4 return trips to Cuba after Castro's takeover, including a month-long trip in 1961, and a return to Cuba had been planned before the changes in their native country. Rubio's parents were not U.S. citizens at the time of Rubio's birth. Okay, that's interesting. Did they have visas? Okay, that's so. Rubio took advantage of the birthright citizenship clause. They were naturalized in 1975. Some relatives of Rubio's were admitted to the U.S. as refugees. Rubio's maternal grandfather, Pedro Victor Garcia, immigrated to the U.S. in 1956, but returned to Cuba to find work. In 1962, it says he returned to U.S. without a visa. He was detained as an undocumented immigrant. Okay, so his grandpop was an illegal immigrant, and an immigration judge ordered him to be deported. But immigration officials reversed their decision later that day, and the deportation order was not enforced. Interesting. He had a very close relationship with his grandfather, as he should. Good for him. Huh. Interesting. So they reversed his deportation and then reclassified him to the legal status of parolee. That allowed him to stay in the U.S. Isn't that interesting? He's got 3 older brothers. Oh, wow, the family were members of the LDS for a little while, it looks like. Well, that's Mormonism. It's actually, many consider that to be a cult. Do you know who else was Mormon? The alleged shooter, was it? His parents. Yeah, they were Mormon. Interesting. Rubio received his first communion as a Catholic in 1984. Okay, so then they became Catholic. Elections and concurrent employment. Won the special election. That's how we got into the House of Representatives in Florida. We served for 9 years. He worked at a law firm that specialized in land use and zoning until 2014 when he took a position with Broad and Castle, a Miami law and lobbying firm. Don't you just love these lobbyists? State law precluded him from engaging in lobbying or introducing legislation on behalf of the firm's clients. Okay. Later in 2000, the majority leader of the House, Mike Fasano, promoted Rubio to be one of two majority whips. National Journal described that position as typically requiring much arm twisting, but said Rubio took a different approach that relied more on persuading legislators and less on coercing them. Well, I mean, he's a lobbyist. If he was working for a lobbyist law firm, he'd be very good at that, I guess. So he's very well accomplished. It goes on to talk about all of his positions and all his accomplishments. It's very good. Here it goes on to talk about Jeb Bush. Rubio hired 18 Bush aides. Well, that's interesting. Leading Capitol insiders to say the speaker's suite was a governor's office in exile. Oh, and here's a nice picture of him with the Israeli president back in 2013 during a trip to Israel. So, he's been a friend of Israel for quite some time, it looks like. A loyal friend to Israel. Upon taking office, Rubio hired Cesar Conda as his chief of staff. Conda, a former advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney. Oh, if that isn't a red flag, I don't know what is. Dick Cheney. Ugh. Ugh. Sorry. I rebuke you in the name of Jesus Christ. During his first year in office, Rubio became an influential defender of the United States embargo against Cuba and induced the State Department to withdraw an ambassador nomination for Ferrer, who was the chief of mission of the United States. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, this is a lot of information here. 2011, Rubio supported U.S. participation in the military campaign in Libya to oust Libyan leader. You know what? This is about Gaddafi. Do you remember what Hillary Clinton said about Gaddafi? Do you remember how horrible that was? Remember the images that they showed us? And what they did to Gaddafi? What our government did to Gaddafi? So Rubio supported that. He urged that Senate leaders bring a bipartisan resolution to the Senate floor authorizing the president's decision to participate in allied military action in